Back to the studio. Michael Arnold is a researcher at the TRT World Research Centre, and he joins me now in the studio for some further analysis. You know, we just heard Owen saying how there is the potential that these protests could actually backfire. I mean, we saw the Prime Minister resign, but still protesters say that's not enough. They want really the entire government to step aside, but they don't really have a clear alternative as to what could fill the void. Is there at least unity in what they're offering or not quite offering as an alternative here?
Yeah, I think that's kind of gets to the heart of the question right now. You know, as I think we've seen from the president's call today for Hariri, who of course just resigned, to actually lead the caretaker government, it shows you how sort of complex and in some ways convoluted this process is. You know, so we have to keep in mind that now we're in a caretaker government situation, but we have the same players who are sitting around and trying to renegotiate a cabinet position. So although this was an initial demand of the protest movement, and you know, and I think can be seen as an accomplishment for them, there is a long way to go, and there's potential dangers as well as hopes. You know, I think the demand to have a technocratic government is really a key demand. Remains to be seen whether that can actually be implemented.
Right. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's fair to say Hezbollah is particularly protective of its role in government and its influence generally in Lebanon with the support of Iran. It's a very delicate balance to have Hezbollah working side by side with other parties in Lebanon, and I think it's pretty important not to disturb that balance too much, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a bit of an irony in their position at the moment. You know, for years, Hezbollah represented the, you know, you could say the voice of the voiceless or the oppressed, the sort of Shia minority in the country. Over the years, of course, they have come to be the single most powerful political actor in the country itself and are now very much part of the government. They had, you know, an advantageous deal following off the backs of the last elections in May 2018. As well as within this government. So, you know, they had Hariri in a place where it was advantageous for them. They had their Christian allies in the Free Patriotic Movement in an advantageous position for them. So, as Hassan Nasrallah said the other day, they don't accept the resignation of the government. And, you know, I think it's very clear at this point that they see it as a disadvantage for them.
I posed a question cynically to Owen. Let me pose it more positively to you. What would be the best case scenario outcome of these weeks of protests and almost revolution?
Absolutely. You know, I think the best case scenario at this point is what I mentioned earlier, is to have a technocratic government. We have to keep in mind that...
Do we know who they are?
Well, there's a number of names, of course, that are circulating, and there are plenty of talented people in the country who, of course, they have their political affiliations, but are not the same characters that we see now. Something that's really important to keep in mind, though, is in the background of this political crisis, we have a country on the brink of economic collapse. So in some ways, you know, this may pressure the current political actors to actually act a little bit quicker than they have in the past, because if they don't, there's a lot of trouble. You know, and I think it's important to keep in mind that any reforms in a country like Lebanon have to be done very, very slowly. It's complicated, the political system is complex, it's well entrenched, and if things move too quickly, that's when you risk a spark of violence.
Right. Okay, Michael Arnold, thanks so much for coming in.